Welcome, welcome to Stories in Focus. My name is Ellouise Schoettler. I'm your storyteller host. And today we have a very special guest. Joel Markowitz is the publisher, editor of DC MetroTheatre Arts. Is that correct,
That's
Joel?
correct. Long name, right?
Good. It's okay. And we welcome him to talk about many things. We'll have conversation. Hi,
Well, between
Joel.
both of us, we'll be talking up a story.
That's right. We'll be fighting to get room. One of the things that I've wanted to ask you is I look at your site and look at what you're doing, and then I wonder to myself, how did you get started doing that?
Well, when I moved to D.C., I went to paralegal school in Philadelphia, and paralegalism was really hot then when it first started, and they were actually paying paralegals a decent salary in those days. We're talking about 1985. I came here to D.C. and I started a social group for theater goers called the Ushers.
I was going to ask you about the Ushers. Tell us about that.
And so it's still in business, actually, but
Is
I
it?
merged it with another group that I've been helping out called Broadway Bound Meetup. So now it's called Broadway Bound Meetup / the Ushers. And we get together. There are 5 or 6 organizers that have events every month. So it's very busy, about 500 members.
What kind of events?
There are theater events, theater outings, seeing shows, having dinner. It's all different kinds of artsy events.
So you arrange to go together as a group?
Go together as a group, have dinner, talk about the show, try to set up a talk back after.
Right.
To meet the cast and to at least let the director of the cast know what you thought.
What's the last one that you just did?
I just did one yesterday.
Oh, good.
Didn't that work out well?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Perfect plug. I was at Olney Theater Center. Wonderful little theater out here in Olney, Maryland. And there's a show called Over the Tavern. And the playwright, Tom Dudzik, is from Buffalo, New York, where I grew up. So I thought I would surprise this guy. And we'd talk about Buffalo because that's where the play takes place, and it's fairly autobiographical. And so I went into the green room where he was before the show started, just to introduce myself. I like to do that before I interview someone or work with someone in a talk back. And he was just we were just throwing it out where you get the best buffalo wings. He said Duff's or Anchor Bar. We were having such a good time talking about growing up in Buffalo, which is a very close community.
Now, how many people from your group went with you?
It wasn't a Broadway Bound Meetup event yesterday, unfortunately. I wish it was. But basically, they had asked me, Olney Theater Center, to come and do this talk back. I had strongly suggested it.
Okay. But now, if you were doing a Broadway Bound Meetup group, how many would take, and where did you go the last one that
Well,
you
a few weeks ago, we went to Sonnetic Theater to see Jekyll and Hyde. We had 30 people, which was a nice turnout.
Right.
We had lunch at a Thai restaurant, which is about 10 minutes away from the theater. It's at Crystal City Metro. Actually, they took over the arena stage space while Arena was renovating its
Now, this
building.
is Sonnetic Theater?
Sonnetic Theater is, for all of you who have not been to Sonnetic Theater, it is the most stunning piece of work in the area, I think. Every year at the Helen Hayes Awards, they win a slew of awards. They actually do a lot of Shakespeare with no talking.
Oh, really?
The silent Shakespeare. And Jekyll and Hyde was silent also, except they have a special score that's written. It's all done with athleticism, dance, movement. You just can't believe what you're saying.
Sort of like the Comedy dell'arte from Gallaudet, the group that comes
Faction
to
of
the...
Fools we're talking about, which is
yes.
so Matthew Wilson's incredible group.
Yeah.
And it's a little different because Comedy dell'arte is usually very funny.
Yeah.
This is a little more serious, although there is some humor. They did Taming of the Shrew last year, which was hysterical.
Well, one of the things, since I've been reading both on Facebook and going to your site and reading, you know, the people that you talk about, the things, that you bring forth smaller theaters that nobody knows about, just as the general rule as to the richness of theater here in this area.
You know, there is that misconception that the only good theater is in the big theater.
Right.
And there's also this other misconception that, you know, or a bad habit, I'll call it, that people will not go anywhere unless it's 15 minutes near their house. I don't know what it is out here in D.C. For instance, Toby's Dinner Theater in Columbia.
Yes,
that do so many wonderful productions. And I will talk to groups, and I will talk to theater goers in the area, and I'd say, well, you should go see this production of Legally Blonde, or they did Titanic, the musical, a couple years ago, that was so stunning and so beautiful to listen to and to watch. And they'll say, we'll never go to Columbia. There are some major papers here in town, hint, hint, that will not send anybody there. And here they are winning Helen Hayes Awards and being nominated every year. And they just won't go. Fortunately, the Helen Hayes Award judges do go there, thank God.
Right, right.
But to my fellow colleagues who review, please go out there because you will see some fantastic theater.
Well, he's talking about local theater and about theaters. We were chatting just coming down here. We tape Channel 16 is in the lower level of the National Guard Armory in Kensington. And there are a lot of things that happen here in this building, and one of them is the Kensington Arts Theater, of which you're very familiar with what they're doing right now.
I've been covering them since day one.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of Stephen Sondheim productions are done in the large theaters. And I will say this year, and you can ask all my reviewers, I have 55 writers on my site so far, and we're trying to get this one to be number 56. So all of you write into her and tell her, you should do it. Nice guy over there. You should write for him.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah.
Anyways, but their production of Sunday in the Park with George this year was, I think, up to now, I won't say I think, I take it back, was the best musical production I have seen all year. How's that?
Fabulous. Well, I saw, as I was telling you, I've only seen one, I'm ashamed to say, the Jekyll and Hyde that they did a year and a half ago.
Right.
Fantastic. I was stunned. And what's this that they've got coming on now? Walk with the Living Dead?
They are doing a musical version of Night of the Living Dead, the George Romero, very scary film that scared the, I won't say that word, I don't know if it's a family show,
Yeah.
the hell out of me when I was a kid. And Matt Connor, who a lot of people have seen his work, Nevermore at Signature Theater, and they did Nevermore here. It's an Edgar Allan Poe musical using his work. I think one of the best things written in the last couple of years. Beautiful piece of work. They did that here, and Stephen Gregory Smith are actually engaged. And Stephen does a lot of work at Signature Theater also. And they worked together on this adaptation, musical adaptation of The Night of the Living Dead. And for the last few months, he's been writing a series, behind-the-scenes series, from the first rehearsals or from writing the work all the way to opening night. He's now on part 7 that went up today on DC MetroTheatre Arts. And it's a fascinating look of how to put something together. How does it work? Who are you looking for in auditions? He had a very tough time casting 2 roles, which I won't give away because I want you all to go and read it.
Right.
But what's interesting is to see from the first time somebody sits down and says, boy, this would be a great idea to musicalize. Look, they did Les Mis, why can't we do Night of the Living Dead, right?
As I read the piece I saw about this play, I think I must have seen musical. I must have seen 3. He's talking about the set.
Right.
And that had been in his basement, first with Barbie doll set up, and that he's been working on this whole idea and bringing it to fruition for 10 years?
Absolutely. I mean, Rent, Jonathan Larson had worked on Rent for over a decade before it was put on.
How are they financing that?
I think that Kensington Arts Theater is helping him, and a lot of people are volunteering. What's so nice is, like today I found out that I didn't know, is that Matt Rowe, who's this fantastic sound designer, is doing the sound here. I mean, how fantastic is that? We have a very generous theater community here. People help each other out. It's one of the things I'm very proud of with our site. Yeah. And with my writers and myself. I'll give myself a little plug here.
Well, you should.
Is that we try to help as many people as we can. We are a small theater community. It's very difficult to survive today in this economy.
Right.
Buying tickets is a very luxury thing today.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, and so there have been some theaters that have shut their doors because of the recession. We were really lucky in this area that it was very few.
Well, that explains a question that I had when I read it this morning, because he was talking about there must be fight scenes in it and this sort of thing, and that he was feeling so good about this choreographer that had come in to help. And just coming from the arts and whatever, that automatically jumps up is that how is he paying for that? So, you know, that explains it.
I would be surprised, it would not surprise me that these generous artists are donating their time.
Wow.
Because community theater, they don't pay. The payment is the great experience of working on the show.
Yeah, because I know when I saw Jekyll and Hyde, the atmosphere, the way that it was
The
staged.
lighting was
Oh yes,
stupendous.
it was, and so there was that. There's a total professional touch. Now, if somebody came to you and said, "Okay, Rich, you know, local theater and everything," name us 2 small theaters that we might not know that you suggest we go see.
Well, I think Forum Theater is one that's in Roundhouse Theater's Silver Spring location. It's right next to the Silver AFI
Right.
Silver
Is that
Theater.
part of Roundhouse?
It actually, I don't know if it's part of Roundhouse. The theater is part of Roundhouse. Foreign Theater stands on its own. But Roundhouse has been generous enough to help them, to give them that venue. And Forum Theater does fantastic work. They did Angels in America, both parts last year, and it was stunning. And I saw it on Broadway, and I've seen, you know, those 2 productions everywhere. And that, to me, was the most emotional, heart-breaking production that I'd seen of that. And sometimes simple is better.
Right.
The set design was minimal there. They let the words speak for itself. I can't tell you how many times where a set design gets in the way.
Oh, absolutely.
I saw a show this weekend, I won't mention the name, where they kept wheeling in and out these pieces. In the middle of the one great number of the show, this is a musical that the score is forgettable. I'm being generous here, okay? Really. And there have been 62,
Turn down the volume.
62 productions of this show. It's now hot. I'll just say that it's the color of someone's hair. How's that? That's as good as we'll get.
Okay.
Every school is doing this thing, and it's not Hairspray. Hairspray was last year's. Everybody did it.
Right.
And you know, the score is fun for the people who are in the production. The songs really make them move, and they're having a good time, and they can lose 5 pounds, you know, production. So it's good weight loss, you know. But here was this one character who steals the show, and she's a hairdresser, and the actress was stunning and powerful and stole the show.
Yeah.
And in the middle of her big 11 o'clock number, she's booming it out of there. There's some guy in the back wheeling out the set.
Oh, so they really hadn't thought that through.
They did. It turned out that the lighting person didn't darken the stage so you wouldn't see it.
Yeah. Now, before we break, we've
Yeah.
got 1 more minute for you to tell us the second theater that you would recommend. You recommend Forum, and what's another one you
Well,
think
I said
underpaid?
Sonetic is important, but,
Okay.
but let's also talk about one of the community theaters, another community theater, which is Reston Community Players, the Arlington Players. They're all fantastic. But Eldon Street Players, out in Herndon, in an industrial park, does fantastic work, plays and musicals. In fact, for 25 years, the Ushers have ended their season going to the Eldon Street musical.
Wow. You know what, I think that people, if they're not in theater, don't understand like they didn't understand. I'm a visual artist.
Right.
And visual artists, you're in the museum or in New York, but the richness is in the alternative space.
I'll tell you why.
And
because
so community theater is that same place where it's being
or the
nourished.
small theaters like Forum, the mid-sizes we call them. Forum. I'll tell you why, because a lot of the large theaters have incredibly, they have incredible amounts of donors. Incredible amounts of donors. And so I feel that when you don't have so much money, you have to be creative. More creative.
That is true.
And you won't have these incredible costumes that were, a lot of the large theaters, they rent the costumes from a Broadway production.
Right.
So you'll see what you saw on Broadway. So obviously it's going to be glorious to look at, eye candy as we call it.
Yeah.
But the small theaters can do incredible work because there's this love of actors who want to be, okay, wannabe actors, who are in community theater, and there are some fantastic community theater actors who are now working in the professional theaters.
Right. Now this is why we should all be reading
DC
MetroTheatre Arts, because you know you have the menu and you have reviewers who've written up about it, and that's how we find out. Don't go away. We're going to be back just a few seconds with more conversation with Joel Markowitz.
It's fun to sing,
Zippity zip zip zin zin zin.
dance, and play music every day.
Yeah, go for it.
Do it Doing something artistic inspires creativity and helps you succeed in school and life.
Hooray!
Play music, paint, and dance together as a family.
Come on, team!
Blast off with the arts.
Blast off!
For 10 ways to add the arts into your life, visit AmericansForTheArts.org.
Hello, welcome back to Stories in Focus and our conversation with Joel Markowitz. And there's a question here. Now, he's really whet my appetite for a lot of theater with what he's talking about, the richness that we can find here in Washington. But, Joel, how are we going to pay for that? The prices of tickets are high.
Well, you know, there are ways.
Oh, really?
Because I don't make a lot of money, so I've learned. The one thing is there are half-price ticket websites. One is goldstar.com. Now, I strongly suggest everybody sign up for Gold Star.
Okay.
It's free. You have to obviously create a password so you can get in, but they send you these weekly updates. And sometimes they send you updates every other day of shows that are half price. And you know, it used to be that the large theaters, Eleanor, never put their tickets on there. But you know, the way the economy is now, and because there are, believe it or not, it's everybody sitting down, but there are over 200 theater venues in our area. If you include the community theaters, the universities, which we cover on DC Metro Theater Arts, because for me, the most important thing is to cover the stars of the future, the playwrights of the future. If you go to our large theaters, professional theaters, you will see so many of our local university students and graduates working on the stage.
Well, particularly Catholic universities.
Catholic, American, George Washington, Georgetown, even Van Ness, UDC, they have fantastic theater there. And in the Baltimore area, there is so much great young talent here.
So Gold Star is one.
Gold Star is one. Going to our site, we have some ticket offers that if you click on ticket discounts or ticket offers on our...
On the top?
Right. You'll see some of the things. We have a Rocky Horror show ticket giveaway that's coming up. We just had a ticket giveaway for University of Maryland concert.
Do you know, I've never seen that.
You've never seen what?
Rocky Horror.
I think it's time. Every time I look at my paycheck,
that ought to be on my bucket list, and I've never seen it.
every time I look at my paycheck, I go, oh, Rocky Horror. Yeah. Look at this. It's terrible.
Okay, so ticket discount on the top line.
Take a look at there. There are other sites that are offering discounts. DC Theater Scene is one. And if you just Google, you go in and use good old Google and type in there DC area ticket discounts. Lots of stuff will pop up. Ticket Place, which is near Gallery Place, sells discount tickets. You can still walk up there and buy them. So they're out there. And a lot of the theaters offer rush tickets. So if you go an hour before it opens, the tickets that aren't selling, they'll sell it to you cheap.
Oh, okay.
If you're a senior and you're a student, most of the theaters offer student discounts, special seats. In New York, if you're going to New York, everybody, sign up for BroadwayBox.com. They'll send you major discounts, especially when they start previewing the shows. Remember South Pacific, the revival? That was at Lincoln Center, and nobody could get in forever for the first couple of years. BroadwayBox.com offered us like $30 orchestra seats for the first 2 weeks of the preview.
Well, now, if you put together a group, can you get a discount at these theaters? Say you've got 6 or 8 people you want to go together.
You always have to do either 15 or 20. It all depends on each theater.
Oh, really?
So if you wanted to go to Kennedy Center, since I've been running the Ushers and Broadway Bound Meetup / the Ushers now, you have to have at least 20 people to get a group discount, but the discount is usually 10 to 15%. It's not a major discount, but it's enough to, I always look at it as, hey, it's like paying for dinner for free.
Exactly.
That's the way I always look at it. So there's that opportunity. Every theater has group sales. So if you get a group together, it's nice that you can all sit together. The other thing is a lot of the theaters offer pay what you can, where they have a performance right before it opens, because they're testing out a lot of technical stuff. And they'll let you donate. It's usually $10 or more to see a show. Some people give less, shame on them. But anyway.
Well, there used to be, and I think there still is now, for anybody that's interested and wanting to get on a waiting list or anything, you can try to be an usher. and I imagine you just call the theater to find out the information about that.
Well, let's talk about that. I've been ushering forever, and a lot of people in my group are ushers, hence the name.
The name, yes.
Okay. And we started the group in 1990 because we wanted to help the smaller theaters, especially community theaters, because they don't get paid, and they need help to market. So what we do on our site is to help them afford to market. Or we do ad swaps so that we're getting our name out and they're getting their name out on our site.
Right.
So, you know, trying to get into the theater, if you think that you can't afford it, you can. There are ways to do it. You can
Just find out those ways.
find out who's got the rush hour tickets, the tickets, you know, that are there an hour before. Signature Theater has rush tickets for $30. And a lot of their tickets are way up there, 80, 90, even more, depending on what the show is.
Right.
So if you go there, and I can tell you the best time to go and take advantage of the rush tickets is during the week.
Oh, of
Because
course.
the weekends, you know, the subscribers usually go on the weekends, and that's when people usually go. They have free time. So if you go during the week, there is a great chance you're going to get something good.
I hope you're listening. I'm listening. I was secretly taking notes. You know, that I think anywhere that we can see good theater and save a buck is a wonderful thing. You know,
It's a great thing.
yeah, it's a great thing. The thing I want to talk about next, there are two other items I want to really get into, but one of the things, you're talking a lot about help, and I think you do a lot of that, Joel, for the performer, for the theater. And last year during the Fringe, you really created wonderful help opportunities for all of the performers that had theaters by giving them an opportunity to tell their story before it was even time for the performance. Tell us about that.
Well, there were 100 and I think it landed up with 136 or 134
Something
shows.
like that, yeah.
And we covered every one of them. Pretty amazing for a site that was only a month old at that
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
And, you know, most of the people come to the Fringe don't have a lot of money. And there's a lot of fees they have to pay, the Fringe, including insurance, right?
Oh, yeah.
In case somebody falls down on their set and gets hurt.
Right.
And that's a lot of money. And a lot of them are staying, you know, sleeping on friends' floors or anywhere they can find during the Fringe. So I decided, why don't we work together as a team and help each other out? Advertising, it was whatever you could afford. If you couldn't afford, put our ad in. Let's do some ad swaps. We were a news site. We needed to get our name out there. So let's just say we all worked together on that. And what I did is I sent those weekly updates, giving suggestions how to get the word out on your show.
Right.
I think one of the suggestions was stand at that Metro, right, Gallery Place. It's a busy one.
Yeah.
Between 5 and 7:30 when people are coming home, and talk to people.
Well, you know, the other thing you did was that 2 or 3 weeks before the Fringe, you invited all the performers or the acts and whatever to submit their story, and you ran it. So I read almost all of them, and it was fascinating what they were
what was
telling
good
you.
is that a lot of the people who are there at the Fringe, they don't have time to really meet each other.
No.
There's very few opportunities, right, to just go out, have a drink, usually after the shows. But there's always a show playing, right, when yours is over. It's an incredible schedule. I want to give them a tip of my hat over at the Fringe Festival because they keep this thing organized and going. It's really a lot of work. I know what
it's
it's
a
like
heck
to,
of a lot of work.
Yeah, I know what it's like to keep 55 writers going and making sure that they show up and
Mm-hmm.
everything is done and everything's put on the site. But it gave everybody an opportunity to really see what everybody else was doing.
Right. And some people told their story
Right.
better, and of course I'm pushing story because that's
Right.
where I come from.
Right.
And they really told their story in a better way. Some people saw it as more as an opportunity for a press release. Other people really got into it and told you how they developed the show, and they actually brought you in to the process of
Well,
what
you know
they
what?
were
It was
doing.
also very good therapy for a lot of them. They told me they were under so much stress, so gave them a
Right.
chance when they were writing it. They said, you know what, this really doesn't work.
Yeah.
I need to tighten this show up, or I need to make some changes. So not only that, but for me, it was a chance to meet everybody. I still keep in contact with a lot of them.
Yeah.
And we're already talking about the next Fringe, about working
Exactly.
together. So it
Exactly.
never ends, as the Fringe people will tell you here in town. Once it's over, they have fall Fringe now, and spring Fringe now. Are they doing
Well,
a
you
winter
keep
Fringe?
people complain about their $7 button, but you can use it all year long if one of
Have
their
great
discounts.
discounts, so you make it up so
Right.
fast.
Now, one of the things I read that you had written about is this new play that's really actually a lot of Genesis here in the Washington area. Tell us about Velocity of Autumn.
Well, you know, Molly Smith was the artistic director at Arena Stage, and all of you, I'm sure, know by now that Arena Stage renovated itself. And it's an interesting, beautiful, what do we call it, edifice now? Is that what we call it? I haven't used that word since I was 3. But anyways, and Molly Smith, they have 3 shows at once. They have 3 huge theaters to fill up.
Right.
And that's a lot of work. I give them a lot of credit. I don't know how I would ever be able to do it, but they do it because they bring good quality there.
Right.
Excellent quality there. And it is her Broadway directorial debut. I hope I got that right. That was a tongue twister.
So she's directing here?
She's directing it. Larry Kay, who's a friend of mine, who's a local attorney, a turned Broadway producer.
Yeah.
One of his best friends, Eric Coble, who's Philadelphia-based, so is Larry. And I cover a lot of Philadelphia theater. I love the Philadelphia theater scene. And we can talk about that on another show. I would love to do that, about all the different scenes in our area. But I had covered one of their musicals. We're hoping one of these days it'll be produced in New York. It's called The Tapioca Miracle, which I wanted to call Putting It Together, but they wouldn't let me.
Shame on you.
I told them, you're too hasty here. Oh, God. And it was a musical about a woman that opens her refrigerator and sees the face of Ezekiel the prophet in her pudding. That's all I'll say, in her tapioca.
Okay. All right.
But getting back to what you asked me about this, so what's interesting is that this is a show that Eric wrote, and it had workshops and productions in Cleveland and another place, which my mind is not telling me where right now. And Larry really fell in love with it and always wanted to bring it to New York. So he asked Molly to direct it. And he asked Estelle Parsons, who I just interviewed again. She's in, I can't even remember. Nice Work If You Can Get It.
Okay. She was in Bonnie and Clyde.
She won the Academy Award in 1967 for playing the crazy sister-in-law.
Right.
Estelle Parsons has been in the business for like 65 years. She was Roseanne's mother, actually, on her show for a long time. And she's going to be playing, and you can talk a little bit about the character because you know more about that, who she's going to play.
I don't. My mind's gone really blank. Oh, she's going to play an 80-year-old woman who's being forced into a, I read this in the review, who's been being forced into a retirement home or assisted living, and she barricades herself in. It's an interesting thought, isn't it, when that comes up?
She knew it. Come on.
When it comes up in your life, it's an interesting thought. They're giving me the signal that we're just about out of time, but there was one thought. We covered a lot of ground here. What do you see? What's the most rewarding thing about doing this for you?
You know what's the most rewarding thing is getting the word out about such great theater that people do not know about, right in their own backyard.
Absolutely.
And I think that's it. Going, for me, it's when I go to the theater and these young artists who I've tried to mentor or help by writing articles about them or allowing them to put their articles on the site, just grab me and say, thank you so much. That is so great. Like yesterday at Olney, these are kids I've been their fan, I've been their big fan, cheerleader, just coming up to me and giving me a high five and saying, thank you so much.
Thank you for coming today. I really appreciate it. We are all going to be reading DC MetroTheatre Arts to keep up with what's happening, and maybe someday you'll come back and talk to me about how storytellers and storytelling can become more visible in the spoken arts general world. We won't do that today. We'll come back and pick his brain for that later. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you, Joel Markowitz.
Thank you very much. It was a blast.
See you next time.